Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. The government of Iraq, through various ministries and in collaboration with international stakeholders, is currently engaging in a series of high-level meetings with American investors, bankers, and business leaders. These interactions are not happening in a vacuum. They are the result of years of groundwork, political negotiations, reforms in financial infrastructure, and strategic recalibrations aimed at opening Iraq's economy to global investment. When you consider the timing, scope, and scale of these meetings, it's clear that Iraq is no longer in a stage of mere planning or theory. The country is preparing to execute, indeed, to launch, a wave of national development projects and large-scale economic initiatives that have the potential to transform its economic landscape for generations to come. The signs are everywhere for those willing to pay close attention. These meetings are being held now because Iraq is positioning itself at a critical inflection point in its post-war economic trajectory. For nearly 2 decades, the country has struggled with corruption, security issues, and infrastructural collapse, yet it has also remained an untapped giant with enormous potential. It is a land endowed with natural resources, a young and resilient population, and a strategic geopolitical location. But none of these factors can translate into actual growth or modernization without the right financial and institutional frameworks. That is exactly what Iraq has been building behind the scenes, often slowly and with difficulty, but with increasing momentum over the past few years. Now, with the implementation of tighter banking oversight, a new digital payment infrastructure, and alignment with international financial standards, Iraq is signaling to the world, we're ready. There's also a psychological factor at play here, one that should not be underestimated. Currency value carries symbolic weight. A currency seen as weak or unstable sends a message that the economy itself is weak or unstable. While that may not always be technically accurate, perception drives behavior in global finance. Investors don't only look at fundamentals, they also consider optics, confidence indicators, and signals from policymakers. A revaluation of the Iraqi dinar would serve as one of the clearest signals that Iraq is serious about reform, stability, and international engagement. It would communicate to the world that Iraq believes in its own value, and is ready for others to believe in it too. Moreover, the central bank and government know this. The conversations being held with U.S. entities, whether they be banks, real estate developers, energy conglomerates, or infrastructure firms, are not happening just to explore hypothetical cooperation. They are being conducted with a clear agenda: mobilize investment, secure financing, and execute development plans on an unprecedented scale. These are business meetings with a purpose, backed by legislative changes, regulatory adjustments, and new financial instruments. That would simply not be possible if Iraq was still in a holding pattern or mired in uncertainty. The very act of engaging international investors in this way implies that the domestic situation, politically, economically, and monetarily, is on the cusp of a significant shift. And again, at the heart of that shift lies the exchange rate. You simply cannot bring in billions of dollars of foreign capital to fund megaprojects while maintaining an exchange rate that distorts real value. Imagine trying to attract a US-based construction company to invest $2 billion in building new suburbs around Baghdad, only to have them repaid in dinars that are worth less than a tenth of their productive equivalent. It would make the entire endeavor uneconomical. It would either inflate costs beyond sustainable levels or force Iraq to borrow extensively in foreign currencies, thus creating long-term debt vulnerabilities and eroding national control over monetary policy. This is not to say that revaluing a currency is a silver bullet. It must be done with care, based on sound macroeconomic analysis, and timed to coincide with broader reforms. But the logic is undeniable. If Iraq wants to become a magnet for global capital and scale its economy through transformative projects, it cannot continue to operate under an exchange regime that ties its hands and distorts incentives. The meetings with U.S. stakeholders reflect this reality. They are the tip of the spear, the manifestation of a deeper strategy that recognizes the need for alignment between monetary policy and development goals. Furthermore, let us not forget that Iraq is not isolated in this pursuit. Countries around the world, from Saudi Arabia to Vietnam, are reimagining their roles in the global economy. Iraq must compete with them for investment, talent, and geopolitical relevance. To do so, it needs every tool at its disposal, including a currency that reflects its competitive strengths. The idea that Iraq can remain at 1,310 and still achieve the ambitions it has set for itself is, frankly, unrealistic. It may have been plausible a few years ago, when the country was still grappling with the aftermath of war and political fragmentation. But today, with oil prices relatively stable, financial reserves strong, and public infrastructure in dire need of renewal, the moment has arrived for a new chapter, one that cannot be written in undervalued dinars. The evidence is overwhelming for those who are paying attention. The signs are not just in the headlines, but in the documents, the partnerships, the legal reforms, and the banking modernization initiatives. Iraq is cleaning up its financial system, introducing international auditing standards, cracking down on illicit flows, and embracing digital payment systems that meet global benchmarks. These are not the actions of a country content to muddle along. They are the steps of a nation preparing for takeoff. And that takeoff cannot happen with the weight of an outdated exchange rate dragging it down. It is time for observers, investors, and policymakers alike to recognize the obvious. Iraq is preparing for a leap forward, and it is doing so with clear intent. The meetings with U.S. financial and business interests are not performative. They are preparatory. They are about mobilizing resources, aligning incentives, and creating the conditions necessary for an economic renaissance. And at the heart of that process lies a simple but powerful truth. You cannot build the future with a currency from the past. The Iraqi dinar must evolve to reflect the ambitions of the Iraqi state and the confidence of the Iraqi people. It must become a tool for empowerment, not an obstacle to progress. The time for caution has passed. The time for realism, vision, and courage has arrived. And it is becoming more apparent by the day that the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is not only possible, it is inevitable. Thanks for tuning into Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed and stay ready.